Usual, our meetings must start with electronic script. So I will begin. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, the Young Adult Advisory Council, further known as the Council, needs to make certain that findings and determinations for its record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I asked you in advance for your patience. First, each member of the council council is participating in this meeting from a separate location. We must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear and audible and in an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I am going to conduct a roll call and ask each council member participating in this meeting to state your name, location from which you are participating, and location from which you're participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your colleagues. Following the roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. All right, so I will start. Denver Stupinger. Hopefully you all can hear me, calling in from Fairfax. Muhammad Rahman?
Yes, Alexandria, Virginia.
All right. Sir Bafano?
Yes, from Fairfax, Virginia.
Wonderful. Kiana Simpkins? Casey Judge?
Yes, calling from Falls Church, Virginia.
Wonderful. Leslie Asino? Natalia Denise Moody? Sheeta Coppola will come in later. Anna McCoy? Diego Rodriguez Cabrera?
Yes, calling in from Alexandria, Virginia.
Wonderful. Melanie Marie Stover? Jessica Sun?
Here, calling in from Tysons, Virginia.
Lee Jackson? Okay.
So I see him there. Lee, can you hear me? I'm sorry, Lee calling in from Springfield, Virginia. I think I'm having problems with my mic and my camera. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Can you see me?
No.
Okay, well, I've got a face for radio, so we'll just go.
Thank you, Lee. Dalton Bisson? Najma Mohammed?
Calling from Arlington, Virginia.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, there are 9 of us present, so we do have a quorum. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to my Vice Chair, Lee Jackson, so I may be heard to make my requisite motion. Thus, I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the council.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who was that? Who seconded?
Diego Rodriguez Cabrera.
Wonderful, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lee. Having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the council to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that is such FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the council and physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the council may conduct this meeting electronically through dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access the meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Young Adult Advisory Council website, https://www.fairfaxcounty.gov/economic-initiatives/young-adults-advisory-council-YAA, or by calling 1-844-621-3995 and enter access code 179-823-3460. It is also moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it and the motion carries.
Wonderful, thank you. Finally, it is required that all matters addressed on today's agenda must be addressed at the emergency itself and necessary for continuing in Fairfax County government and or statutorial required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the council's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibility. It is so moved. All right, and then you all have been provided an agenda in advance of this meeting. I can pull it up as well and put it in the chat. Were there any edits that we wanted to make to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is hearing none. I move that we adopt the agenda as proposed.
Seconded.
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Wonderful. The agenda has been adopted and we can go forward with today's meeting. Thank you so much for mustering through that with us, y'all. I'm sorry, I cannot find in my tabs our agenda for today, but today we are covering ZMOD. As stated in previous emails, ZMOD is something that will be heard before the board on January 28th. And a lot of the policies proposed do impact young professionals and new communities coming into Fairfax County. Thus, we found it appropriate for YAA to advise and put their input into the process. The ZMOD, so zoning modifications, will be covered today, and wonderful Casey Judge, one of our wonderful members, has been taking the lead in this and has brought a really great sense of advocacy and a good voice in that space. As we go along, please note that you were provided a draft letter that we're hoping to submit to the board and Chairman McKay tomorrow, and then we will, at the end of the presentation today and discussion of the letter, discuss if you want to testify in person. Any questions? All right, perfect. Let me go ahead and put this agenda in the chat for anyone who needs it.
Sorry, it takes me a while sometimes to get my finger to the unmute button. I don't have any questions. I will just say, I guess first of all, a thank you to Denver and Casey for your work on this letter. Really appreciated. And then secondly, I just wanted to say I know that it was sent out a while ago. I'm going to be frank. I just stopped working at 7 p.m. so I have not had time to read it yet. But I do have faith that both of you have done an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you. And so there were two subcommittees selected to do a special work group on the letter. Unfortunately, the day in which we were surveyed and selected, we were not able to hold a quorum. So Graham, Casey, and myself met to go over all the policies, and I took it upon myself to write the letter, and Casey and Graham provided really great edits. Though I was hoping for a little bit more democratic process, I hope that the ideas expressed elevate everyone's voice here, and definitely our young adult lens and hopes for the county, and that will be up for conversation. Also, I am putting into the chat the two different Google forms that I sent around to create a meeting schedule for us to make sure we are meeting on regular days. I have more responses in the subcommittee meetings than I do at the full committees, so please make sure you do fill those out so we can create a schedule and make sure folks can meet on a monthly basis with their subcommittees, and we can meet on a monthly basis as a full committee without conflict. So I'm going to put that in there, and hopefully we'll have an answer by this evening when you guys come in. All right, so Casey, I don't know if I'm going to pass it over to you to do a ZMOD presentation and an overview.
Sure.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, so Carmen Bishop and I are going to tag team this. Before I pass it over to her to kick us off, as was noted, I am a member on the council, so I will be recusing myself from any types of votes or recommendations that are made on this letter. But my role tonight will be mainly to help present and answer objective Q&As. So just wanted to say that before we get started. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and turn it over to Carmen.
Hey, well, good evening. As I said, I'm Carmen Bishop, and I'm in the Zoning Administration Division along with Casey, and we are the two lead planners that are working on this zoning ordinance modernization project. And we really appreciate you having us this evening. We have, I don't know, we might be up to like 92, 93 presentations or so. We have this goal to get up to 100, so you're helping us reach this goal. But you're also helping us reach a demographic that we haven't really been reaching as well as we would like to. So thank you. So we have been working on this project with a consultant, Clarion Associates, for about 3 years now. We started with a kickoff in January of 2018. And then after some initial background work, we started by focusing on modernizing the uses and their related regulations. And we released, it's a long document. If you haven't had a chance to look, you'll see it's about, without footnotes, about 600 pages. So we released it in installments, in bite-sized pieces. And we started with about 4 installments of the different classifications of uses. And then we put those together, and all the use regulations were in a draft dated July 1, 2019. And then the Board of Supervisors did endorse that work on July 16th of 2019. And then after that, we turned our attention to the other articles of the zoning ordinance, and we released those in installments along the way. And then we put them all together for a complete draft that was dated June 30th of 2020. And then, although we'd been doing outreach all along the way, after that, Casey and I have been on a serious roadshow talking to people from all areas of the county, and we incorporated feedback from that into a revised draft that was dated November 24th of 2020, and that is what we're calling our public hearing draft, because it was authorized by the board to schedule public hearings. And so the Planning Commission public hearing is scheduled for, as Denver said, next week, January 28th, and they will be deferring their decision, of course. It's a lot for them. They'll need to take some time to think about all the comments that they get. And then the board public hearing is scheduled for March 9th. So we'll continue the outreach all along the way, of course. So, why are we doing this? Well, after all, our zoning ordinance, it was originally adopted, this version, in 1978. So it's over 42 years old. And it currently lives in a very unintuitive format and structure in 26 different PDF documents and 1,200 pages long. It's difficult to find what you're looking for, honestly. So the new ordinance will be a unified document with links to other relevant regulations. So that's part of why we're doing it. But the main focus, as I kind of hinted before, has been on updating and modernizing those land uses and their associated regulations. So in 1978, nobody was thinking about the cat lounge picture that you see here, or electric vehicle charging stations or trampoline parks. So we have worked hard at updating the land uses and regulations. And then we're making a few other changes to correct gaps and inconsistencies that have found their way into the ordinance over time. And another main point is we want to update the language. It's part of what we call our plain English effort, so that you don't need a law degree to figure out where you can build your deck. So we're getting rid of the notwithstanding and the heretofore, that sort of thing. And then lastly, this part will actually come after it's adopted, but it's going to be put on a new online platform so that you can use the zoning ordinance on any type of device. Right now, it's really difficult unless you're using a desktop computer or in hard copy. So this is just an example of one way we're trying to make the ordinance more user-friendly. We're using a lot more tables and graphics. Here's an example of one of the zoning district tables where it includes all of the building dimensional standards gathered together in one handy table, and then with a graphic that keys to the different points. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Casey.
Yeah, thanks, Carmen. So as mentioned, one of the big pushes of the ZMOD initiative is the modernization of uses. There are lots of uses that we couldn't imagine in 1978, but there are also a lot of uses that have just emerged over time and maybe need to be treated differently than they were in 1978. So a couple of uses we thought would be of interest to this group. We'll start with your living type uses. So that's the live work development you see in this upper left corner here. So this is a development where it has units that you can either be used for living, they can be used for working, like a little office building or consulting business, or both. It could be a blend of the two. So it's kind of a whole nother take on on like a mixed use integrated area. So this example, I believe, was originally called E-Lofts, and I don't remember what it's called now, but it's in the Bailey's Crossroads area. So it's something that we do have in Fairfax County, and we wanted to carve it out and treat it as its own separate use with the ordinance amendment. The next is stacked townhouse. That's another different way that we've seen people want to live in Fairfax County. This is like a 2/2 unit, and we currently interpret it to be multifamily, but we thought it needed its own use to be called out separately and have some different standards for that use. The other two fun ones, these exist today, but we've done some consolidations for indoor commercial recreation and outdoor commercial recreation. So these are great components for placemaking. Your indoor commercial recreation includes anything from that cat lounge that Carmen mentioned to axe throwing to escape rooms. So really some placemaking elements that we want to see in the county. Now we have expanded the permissions especially for the indoor commercial recreation to different districts to allow for repurposing of some of the vacant office buildings that we're seeing throughout the county. So we're really excited about this use and are hoping that encourages different types of fun uses to come to the county. Data center is another use. While we have it in the ordinance, we wanted to call it out separately and add some standards to make sure that it isn't obtrusive to the surrounding neighborhoods. And then the last one on the slide is goods distribution hub. So that's our last mile delivery. So we're getting approached by different grocery stores or certain big companies like Amazon, let's say, and they want to have some smaller scale areas that are closer to the end consumer. So for that last mile delivery that needs to happen to make sure that you get your package in time. So these are just a couple of uses we wanted to call out. And my computer is not cooperating. There we go. Some other fun uses that we're really excited about. One is the solar collection system. So this is, we wanted to encourage solar energy throughout the county. We've added some standards to allow solar panels to actually be above the permitted maximum building height. So that way, if you have a house that's already built previously under the previous height regulations, you can still put solar panels on top of it if it encroaches into that building height. So it's not as much of a barrier. Another fun one is food trucks. We currently do not allow food trucks in residential areas, even if it's in conjunction with a non-residential use. So let's say a swim club or a place of worship or a school. So we propose to allow the food trucks to be co-located with a non-residential use in a residential district up to 12 times per year. So that's a little bit more flexibility, especially during the pandemic. People are trying to find creative ways to still have fun and safely eat. So that's one we've gotten a lot of questions on. Electric vehicle charging. This is something that's also not currently in our ordinance. So we've interpreted it to different ways and we have some standards. So we wanted to call it out and to treat it differently and to allow a little bit more flexibility than what our previous interpretations have allowed. Special event, I will have to say that this gave me like the heebie-jeebies seeing all these people close together, but this is a pre-pandemic picture of a beer festival. So I was like, oh gosh, hopefully we'll be able to get back to that again. But special events, we've expanded the ability for special events to not only be sponsored by a nonprofit, but to also be sponsored by private entities too. So again, we want this placemaking elements. We want to be able to have outdoor activities, not just for nonprofit events. And then lastly on this slide, this is a really fun one, and Denver picked up on this. I'm really glad she did. This is a new use we've created called alternative use of historic buildings. So essentially, we're hoping to encourage some adaptive reuse and preservation of structures that are on the county inventory of historic sites by allowing a special exception to do some other uses that you may not be able to do in a residential district. This was an old tavern. It's on the resident curator program, part of the Park Authority's program. But we're thinking, for structures that are similar to this, that have some great history, would be great spaces for maybe a tavern currently. So we do have a special exception option that we're adding. Now, Carmen and I are going to talk about, I think, the two biggest topics. We call them our hot topics because we have people on all sides of the issue for these two topics. So the first one is the accessory living units. You may commonly know them as accessory dwelling units, as in-law suites, accessory apartments. There's a lot of names for it. We have created a new name with this amendment, the proposed modernization, because we have been getting some confusion between affordable dwelling units and accessory dwelling units. So we have our new name, ALUs. So we are bringing forward a lot of today's standards unchanged. Currently, with an accessory living unit, just to describe what that is, it's basically a subordinate area that contains the provisions for eating, sleeping, living, and sanitation. So a lot of times we'll see it in the form of an in-law suite or, basically like a basement area that has a kitchenette, and it can kind of create a separate independent space that's still co-located with the principal dwelling. So we are bringing forward the standards shown here. You would only be able to have an accessory living unit with a single family detached dwelling. It is limited to 2 bedrooms and 2 people. You would need a special permit and 2 acres for a detached accessory dwelling unit. So the interior ones are really where we're proposing the changes. The owner is required to live on the property, so it must be owner occupied. And then county personnel may inspect the accessory living unit. You also, this should go without saying, but we want to say it again, you have to meet all the regulations for building safety, health, and sanitation. But we have added some standards based on some community feedback to require some additional health department review for anything that's on well and septic, as well as some fire safety measures. So making sure there's interconnected smoke systems, smoke alarms, and carbon monoxide systems. Now for the changes. Why is everybody getting riled up? So in terms of the process, currently we require a special permit for all accessory dwelling units as they're currently named. So that requires a public hearing with the Board of Zoning Appeals. There's a $435 fee, and then the time that's needed to go through the public hearing process before you can begin any sort of occupancy or permit process to create the accessory dwelling unit. So we have proposed, based on the objective nature of the standards, to allow the interior accessory living units with an administrative permit approval. So basically you come to the county and we would do an administrative review rather than needing a legislative action. So in terms of the renewal process, we currently have a 5-year renewal process for those permits. We have proposed to reduce it to every 2 years based on some community concerns about making sure monitoring and enforcing the accessory living unit standards. So basically after that first 2-year renewal, we take a look at the record of compliance, and then we can issue up to 5 years or different intervals based on your compliance. In terms of the maximum size, we're proposing for interior to have 800 square feet or 40% of the size of the principal dwelling, whichever is less, just to make sure it does meet that subordinate in nature test. And we have included an option for the board to consider during the public hearing process to use the entirety of a basement, regardless of the size. When some of the rationale in some other jurisdictions do use allow the entirety of a basement is, does it really matter if you're carving out certain areas to meet that 800 square feet if it's just the entirety of the basement and there's not necessarily going to be an external impact? So that's something that we've allowed the board to consider during the public hearing process. We've also included the provisions to allow a special permit to increase beyond that 800 square feet or 40% size. For detached, we have proposed 1,200 square feet, but again, we would require it to be subordinate to the principal dwelling. So occupancy, this is a big one that we currently have in our ordinance. One person in the either principal or accessory unit must either be 55 years in age or a person with disability. So we have proposed, we've given the option for the board to remove that requirement to no longer limit it to require one person to meet one of those 2 standards. And then in terms of parking, we have gotten a lot of community concern about off-street parking traffic. How is that going to be accommodated with the additional 2 people? So we have proposed one off-street parking space would be required for the interior accessory living units. Now, that's not to say that you need to necessarily create an additional space. Let's say you have a single-family detached dwelling on a public street, you have to have 2 off-street parking spaces. So if you already have 4, let's say you have 2 in your garage, 2 in the driveway, you can meet that standard. But this would potentially limit any units that cannot accommodate the 2 parking spaces plus 1. We have included a range of options for the board to consider during the public hearing process, like I mentioned. The first one is that administrative permit, whether we should retain the current permit requirements or allow for an administrative permit. We have given a range on the size as well, from 500 square feet to 1,200 square feet. In terms, I mentioned the basement being able to exceed, and then the age and disability removal. And we also have included a range for the detached units from 700 to 1,500 square feet. So in terms of the accessory living units, we have done research on surrounding jurisdictions just to see what's going on in Arlington County, Alexandria County, Montgomery, Loudoun. And based on what we've seen, we only anticipate a modest increase in the numbers of accessory living units, since we are still retaining a number of standards. I will say that the age and disability standard is very unique to Fairfax County. We did not find that in research of any of the surrounding jurisdictions, and our consultant could not recall another jurisdiction that does have that age or disability standard. So just to give you some metrics on our ALUs, since 1983, when the ordinance was amended to include the accessory dwelling unit provisions, we've had 219 of these special permits approved and 17 denied. And since the amendments that Arlington County and Montgomery County have done for their accessory dwelling unit provisions, Arlington County has seen 32 attached and 38 detached, and that's since 2018. And then Montgomery County, they did amend just before COVID, so they can't quite give a good picture of what it's going to be like post-pandemic. So we are planning to monitor the accessory living units, and if there's a problem, we will be raising that to the board in the next upcoming years.
So on the other big topic, our home-based businesses. So this is a consolidation of 3 different ways that you can currently have a business in your home. So the zoning ordinance currently has this administrative home occupation permit. And this is where, you just come to the counter. I think it's $50. The zoning ordinance does have a list of certain things that you cannot do. You can't have a restaurant, can't have a gift shop, a few other things. But then the list of what you can do currently is kind of open-ended. So we do end up in our, Casey and I in our branch doing determinations on whether something should be allowed or not as a home occupation permit. You cannot have any customers unless it's for a teaching occupation. So, but you could be teaching anything. You could be teaching yoga or, I don't know, math, maybe violin, anything that people teach. And then you can have 4 students at a time and 8 in a day. And this is in any kind of dwelling. And you're allowed to have 1 employee. So that's the current home occupation permit. We also currently have a special permit. So that's what needs to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals, for that public hearing process. And it's only for those licensed professionals. So it's a home office, but only say for an accountant or a doctor or a dentist. And as part of that process, the board would determine how many customers, and then they can approve up to 4 to 6 non-resident employees, depending on the lot size. And that one's only allowed in a single family detached dwelling. And then the last way that we currently have is the barbershop or beauty parlor in the home. That's also that public hearing special permit process. For that, it can be in any type of dwelling, but no employees, and the facilities need to be designed to allow just 1 patron at a time. So taking these different ways, and we wanted to put them all together and create a single equitable set of standards for businesses in the home, so that they would all be treated the same. And if they meet the standards, then they could be issued an administrative permit. And then if they want to exceed those base standards, they could request a special permit before the BZA. So we wanted to clarify what types of uses we think are compatible in the home. So we don't end up with these open-ended use determinations all the time. And so we are proposing to continue, of course, the instructional uses and the office uses. We have repair of small household items, the barbershop or hair salon. We've called out that no nail salons because, and I think I heard before the meeting, Mohammed, that you're a mechanical engineer perhaps. Well, we did consult with our mechanical engineer friends down in the Land Development Services Department, and they said that the ventilation in a home is really not suitable for doing nails. And then no massage, because that's actually licensed massage therapy is not allowed in a home. Sewing, tailoring, retail sales would be allowed, but it's pretty common that most jurisdictions do not allow on-site delivery. So you can't we don't want to turn a home into a convenience store. So you can't walk in, buy something and walk out. So yes, you can be having that transaction, but there needs to be off-site delivery. And then the making of things, very customary that people make things in their home, whether it be food or other items, and they sell them. But again, there wouldn't be the walking in and walking out with it. You would need to arrange for off-site delivery. Then for the standards, we are recommending, and this would be for this is what you can get with the administrative permit, 2 at a time and 6 in a day. And this would include, we have trying to look at the layering of different things that happen in the home. So when it says including any STL guests, that's short-term lodging guests. So if you are also doing short-term lodging, you have to count those number of guests towards your 6 in a day. They would need to be by appointment and spaced 15 minutes apart so that you don't create problems with parking and traffic. There could be 1 non-resident employee, but only in the single-family detached dwellings, a maximum size of 400 square feet, and they would need to show the availability of 1 parking space. So that doesn't mean that it needs to be on their lot. There might be a space that maybe you live in a condo and you have a reserved parking space that you can make available for your person. These are the standards, and then if they wanted to, say, exceed the customers or the employees, they could request the special permit from the BZA. And just like with the accessory living units, because this has been a controversial topic, we are proposing to advertise some ranges so that the board can think about different things they might want to vote on during the public hearing process. So we have ranges for the size, the number of employees. And so the range actually goes from, I doesn't quite say this here very well, but I believe our range, oh, there it is, number of customers, I'm sorry, 0 to 4 at a time. So while we are recommending as staff 2, the board could approve none or up to 4 at a time. So that's, that's a big range. So if you have, as a group, thoughts on that, it would be good for you to let the board of supervisors know what you think might be appropriate. And then similarly with this number of customers in a day, as staff were recommending 6, but advertising from 0 to 8. So they could land anywhere within that and still be within our scope of advertising. And so I think, well, as you know, we've mentioned we have released our public hearing draft. It's been authorized, and we do have our public hearing date scheduled. So, after having worked on this for over 3 years, we're excited to have gotten to this point. It's going to be, we still have a ways to go, but we're happy to be here. And then once the board does approve it, as I mentioned, we'll be putting it into this new online platform, and that will have all the bells and whistles, I hope. So it'll have like hover over boxes and links to things, and we'll have like keyword searches so that if you don't know that we call it an accessory structure and you type in swing set, that could come up. So we'll be working on training and getting it ready for that for a delayed effective date of July 1. And of course, there are lots of ways. If you have questions, if you are have any questions or comments at all, we do want to hear from you. So we have our dedicated email address that you see there, and that is something that Casey and I check every day. And then we have our Facebook page, and of course our website. And our website has all of our current documents and also all of our previous documents. It has presentations, it has videos if you don't like to read. So we've got a lot of information there. And then of course you're also welcome to call us anytime. So with that, thank you so much. I know this has been a lot, but we really appreciate you, your interest, and we are happy to have any questions.
Thank you, Carmen and Casey. And I want to just be cognizant of the time. We have about 20 minutes to go through questions and then completely review and either approve or vote down the proposed letter. So I would ask that we spend about 5 minutes to general questions and then have further questions as we analyze the letter and its corresponding parts. But yeah, open the floor.
I'm happy to jump in there. Oh, sorry, who was that?
No, go on, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you both so much. I have lots of questions, but as per Denver's request, I will pare it down. My two questions for you are then, one, you said that the suggested number of customers for home-based businesses that you wanted to decrease it due to parking concerns, and I was wondering if there's any information or data that you guys have put together on the potential income loss or economic impact of these home-based businesses that are counting on, I think you said it was like 4 customers or I don't remember the numbers. You had lots of numbers, but I remember it was maybe like 8 customers a day or something like that, and it would be decreased in half. So I wanted to know if you had any research on that. And then my second question for you is if you can provide a little bit more color on the any updates to the outdoor recreation zoning. One of the things that we're interested in talking about as part of this is the mixed use, blended residence kind of like mosaic district almost kind of style of living. So thank you.
Hi, Sarah. I think I know your mom, so tell her I said hi. So for the home-based businesses, we have provisions that are sometimes known as grandfathering. And so if somebody has an existing home occupation permit, I think that our grandfathering would allow them to continue that, but if they wanted to take advantage of any of the new provisions, they would have to come in and get the new home-based business permit and abide by that. So if somebody is already having the 4 students at a time, then they could keep that. But new people would need to abide by the current ones. But it's a good question. We did start with recommending 4 customers at a time and 8 in a day, bringing forward those current numbers from the zoning ordinance, but applying them to all types of business. And quite honestly, we got a lot of pushback that people were very concerned about the parking and the traffic, and so in deference to that, we pulled it back to 2. But I think 2 is the minimum because certainly people come in pairs a lot to something. So.
And Carmen, just to clarify, the advertised range includes the ability to go up to 4. So that would be no change, essentially, is a potential option for the board, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's right. So if you think that 4 is the right number, then please do let the board and the planning commission know.
And in our letter, we are asking for it to be at 4 and 8 a day.
Thanks, Denver.
And then I'm not sure how to answer your second question about the outdoor recreation. It is a consolidation where today we have some different finely grained uses, and then we would now you wouldn't, if a new thing came along that the zoning ordinance didn't currently contemplate, it'd be easy to know where it is. It would be outdoor commercial recreation. I don't know if we easily have that table handy.
I think maybe in terms of like the mixed use areas, the outdoor commercial recreation might not be as applicable as the special event regulations, which would allow for like, I'm trying to think like a 5K or a little music festival or a little craft market. You'll see that mosaic. They basically baked into their proffers and their approvals that they can do that when they want. They can shut down their private streets and have those events. But for other areas that maybe didn't work those into their approvals, they would need to come through and get this temporary special permit, which we're now calling an administrative permit. But we've added the flexibility for not just the nonprofits to do that. Now it would be for-profit uses can avail themselves of these provisions. And we've also changed, instead of the current ordinance technically only allows for 21 consecutive day events. So we've changed it so it's no longer required to be consecutive. So if an area in Annandale wants to come in and have movie night Fridays and they want a food truck in, a parking lot or something, they could come in and say, every Friday for X number of months, I want to have this event. And now they'd be able to do that. So we're hoping that the special event maybe gives some of the existing commercial or mixed use areas a little more flexibility on event and placemaking activities outside. So Sarah, I don't know if that's exactly what you were envisioning, but maybe.
Yeah, thanks. I think that helps. I guess from my standpoint, and part of it might just be, the fact that I'm not a zoning expert, and I certainly don't pretend to be, is just to understand like how easy is it for new places to be developed that that fit in this bucket of mixed use, or for existing places to be kind of redeveloped or expanded to be more of a mixed use. Is there flexibility in that? Are there changes to that? Or is this not relevant to my question?
I think that probably the two things that you hit on, the indoor and outdoor commercial recreation, and being more flexible with that, I think is really important for the way people want to live post-pandemic anyway. And then what Casey mentioned, the special events. The zoning ordinance has planned districts where that does allow some added flexibility for them to, have their layout and amenity areas and so forth. I won't tell you it isn't a process. It certainly is. But I think that would be the avenue.
Thank you.
I had a quick question.
Go ahead.
So, and I had to step away, so I may have missed this. And, I'm a huge fan of the, accessible dwelling units, in-law apartments, things like that. I definitely think it's a huge help for affordable housing, especially for young people in the area. I did notice that at-home businesses, like home massages and stuff, won't be allowed, but I'm wondering what other precautions have been taken. Thinking about, opening up more housing, knowing that we are in a high crime environment for human trafficking. So I'm curious about what that, looking through the human trafficking lens and knowing that's a problem in the area, what steps have been taken to help prevent that?
So in terms of the massage, and that's one of we have heard there's, I believe, an illicit massage task force that the board has as well. So the massages are not actually permitted to be licensed out of the home. So if a massage establishment is happening in the home, it is not a permitted one. So we've explicitly said no massages as a part of the permitted home-based businesses to get at that as well.
Sure. And has there been any other thoughts about not just the massages with the business, but the increase in like the in-law apartments or affordable dwelling units and how that might contribute?
How accessory living units may contribute to, the why am I blanking on what you just said?
Human trafficking?
Just the human
trafficking. I'm not familiar of any connection with or any studies done on accessory dwelling units and human trafficking. I don't know, Carmen, if you have anything to add. I don't think that's something that we had contemplated with this.
No,
and I'm not an expert by any means. I was just curious if it had come up.
Yeah.
And then Mohammed, you had a question at the beginning. Do you still have a question?
Can you hear me? Well, yeah, I just have so many questions. I just don't know. Wait, maybe I can email or call you guys because yeah, that's just I have so many questions on especially on the reuse permit thing. Where we're going to look at the old building that we can maybe use on other stuff for other things recently, and also on the businesses too. I have a couple of ideas that I want to ask you guys about, and then also share some ideas. But maybe we can do that later. I can email or call Cassie, something like that, so we can take it through. So I don't take too much time now.
We are happy to chat.
Are there any other questions?
I will chime in and ask 2 more quick ones if we have time.
Sure.
So my 2 quick questions for you are: 1, can in an accessory living unit, are they allowed to have a home-based business, the people that live in that unit? And then second question is, I can see your reaction, Denver.
That's a good question.
Second question is, what burden does the renewal process have? Like, I'm just thinking, if I'm I am, but if I'm some young, professional and I own a home and I've done this accessory, living unit in order to help pay my mortgage, how much of a lift is it going to require if I now have to go through the process every 2 years? Thank you.
Yeah, those are great questions. So as to the first one, yes, you could have a home-based business in an accessory dwelling unit or accessory living unit, but the customers would be cumulative for the whole dwelling. So if if I have an accessory living unit in my basement and they are operating, some home business and I'm operating one upstairs, then we're going to have to work it out so that there's still 2 customers at a time and 6 in a day, unless we go and get a special permit for more. But so there's nothing that would say, you couldn't, because something to kind of think about with the accessory living unit is it's all about occupancy of the dwelling. So a dwelling can be occupied by a family, and I can have 2 roomers or boarders anyway, by right, no questions asked, it's just allowed. And the difference here is that it's created as this separate unit, like Casey described, with those components. And what it really comes down to is they get their own kitchen, so it still is a single family dwelling with this accessory area. And so we can do all of the things, that a dwelling can do. And so that would include, yes, you can have the home-based business, but you have to work together on your numbers. I guess you'd have to figure out, if you're in a detached unit, who gets the employee, but you'd still only get one. And then, okay, what was your other question? Remind me.
The burden of the renewal process.
The renewal. Okay, so fair enough. The renewal does involve submitting a form to the zoning administrator. So you don't have to have a plat prepared or anything, but you do have to fill out a form. And Casey will remind me the fee. Is it $70?
$70 for the renewal, yes.
So it's not a lot, but you have to pay a fee, you have to turn in a form, and our staff will come out and inspect to make sure that all of the standards continue to be met. So they're going to be looking for things like, oh, they haven't actually turned it into a boarding house. It hasn't gotten to be a lot bigger than it was supposed to be, so forth. But so that's it. It's not too bad. What would be bad, if you think about it, though, is that currently somebody has on the property needs to be 55 years of age or older or disabled. So if let's say, the person in the accessory living unit was the older or disabled person, and then they're no longer in that space. And so now you don't. So if they keep those standards, now you have created this accessory dwelling unit but you no longer meet the standards. So sometimes people now, it's determined that they no longer meet the standards and they might have to remove the kitchen. So that's a big deal. But that's something that we have added, is that if you no longer meet the standards, you don't have to take out facilities. You would just not be allowed to occupy it in that way. So you could use the kitchen for entertainment purposes or something, but we wouldn't make you take it out. But currently that does happen.
Thank you for clarifying that. So just to make sure I'm clear, you're saying that if the person moves out of the accessory living unit, it just kind of becomes an empty living unit, and that's completely fine until you find somebody else that meets the standards of 55 plus or disabled.
That could work now, yeah.
Okay, you're saying that could work now, and with this requested update, one of the things is to remove, potentially, hopefully, in my opinion, to remove the 55 plus disability requirement. Is that correct?
That is one of the options. And so then if the board did that, it would be much easier, of course.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn our attention to the letter that we are drafting to the board with our recommendations. I want to set the frame, what was chosen and how was it chosen, after talking to Casey and Carmen about the issues and where current pushback was seen from other organizations, and where our young adult values were being compromised by older communities who might not have our perspective. That was the focus. And as they noted before, the two main focuses were accessory living units and the home-based businesses. So we, in the letter, I propose that we support the modifications put forward to ensure that folks can have accessory living units, that we get rid of the 55 or disabled requirement, because I might be 27 and my mom might have had me when she was 20, and I want my mother to live with me and have her own place, but she's not 55, nor does she identify as disabled. So that is not possible, right? And allowing this dichotomy between age and disability, you're saying, oh, well, if the owner is 55 plus, they're more deserving of having that extra income to supplement their home expenses than they are than younger folks, right? And it puts a really bad bias and really bad take on, affordable living and accessibility on the county. I also noted, the move away from nuclear family systems in Fairfax County and our nation, and how folks have different family structures where we might have adults living with us who are not, 55 or older, who might be your cousins, and we want to provide them the private space for them to raise their possibly small family in our house while we're raising our small family in our house. And the current policies as they are written do not allow for that. So once again, accessory dwelling units, asking for the proposals to be supported, and then also urging them to get rid of the 55 plus and the disabled requirements. Any questions there?
I completely agree with you, Denver. And I mean, also, if you're a parent and you want to live in the main house, but you want your child to live in the smaller house, that's not a possibility right now either. So completely agree.
And later on, where it says, and I'm getting ahead of myself, where it says request for further studies, I recognize the inequities that the requirements of having a single detached home and 2 acres of land is on new folks and new developments and new communities in Fairfax County. As we know, our generations and new builders, developers are not building single family detached homes on large plots of land. They are in a more condensed living community, or townhomes are prevalent. So I'm asking for the board and the Planning Commission to further study this issue to see how we can allow these provisions of accessory dwelling units to be provided to structures outside of single attached dwelling units and outside of the 2 acre requirement, especially if your accessory dwelling unit is already in your existing home. Why do you need an extra 2 acres to add a kitchen to your basement? So that is something we're hitting there as well. Graham, can you scroll back up? Sorry, I'm jumping. And then the second key issue was home-based businesses. As we know, millennials and Gen Xers and younger folks are becoming more innovative and creative in the ways in which they create their own source of income. And home-based businesses are a great way of starting that and fostering that. Real estate in Fairfax County is unreasonable. And for you to have something like a jewelry making business, a candle making business, a small catering business, which you do need a special commercial kitchen, but for you to purchase a storefront to do that is a incredible hardship on your personal economic development and even development of your communities. We recognize that small businesses form when the talents of their community members align with the needs of their communities, right? So I'm really great, I'm not great, but like say I was really great at tutoring kids, and I realized I'm right next to Mosby Elementary. Kids are struggling with geometry. I heard from mom across the street. Maybe I want to start this, right? Without these provisions, with stricter policies around home-based businesses, I wouldn't be able to help build my community and strengthen my community with my skill set. And that's kind of the angle I took with this, was supporting home-based businesses. In recognizing that some folks might have counseling or therapy sessions. I was thinking of a widower's grieving group or support system that someone might run out of their home, right? Usually these groups may be more than just one person talking with the counselor, right? You want to create a community. And once again, that community aspect is really important. So that kind of leaned to the recommendation that 4 customers at a time is sometimes needed. If you think about tutoring, if you think about prep for SATs, if you think about children learning together, that sense of collaboration is truly beneficial. So we were asking for the maximum option of having 4 customers in the business at one time and 8 over the day. Any questions about that?
Yes. So Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, this looks like you worked on this a lot. Looks like a good work. But can I recommend, again, I don't know all the timeline for Casey and the board, but can I recommend, because I believe we received this letter and like an hour or so, 2 hours before the meeting. But do you have to submit it right now? Because I don't think all of us have actually looked at it.
So
I mean,
we do not have
is it?
Sorry, go ahead.
Is it possible for you not to? I mean, of course, again, not to show any concern about what you've done and what you've written. It's just that, I mean, even if it's not the whole group, but the people that are in that subcommittee, to actually give their own. Because I understand you guys didn't have the subcommittee meeting that you guys supposed to have last time. But at least can they go over it and make some kind of discussion before you submit this letter, and also if we can, because I believe all of us have it now, if we can actually go over it and look over it before this letter is submitted, I think that would be great, because I don't think because right now it's just your ideas, I think your work, and hopefully we can give some inputs and see before it is formally.
No, I hear you absolutely. We did have a scheduled subcommittee meeting on Tuesday to do this letter and go into depth. Unfortunately, we didn't have a quorum, so that means not enough people showed up, despite noting their availability to meet on that day. So with that being said, I had to take it upon myself as elected chair to write the letter. We as a board have to either approve this letter or approve to do nothing. Because this is the last meeting that we have as an entire group before the public hearing on the 28th, which is a week from today.
So to clarify that, does that mean that like if we give you any feedback now, or if we email you any feedback, will you be able to make any additions to this letter, or it's either yes to exactly how it is or no to exactly how it is?
So Graham, I'm going to default to you. I think as long as we don't change the substance, like the angle of the letter that's agreed on to by the board, we can make some minor modifications. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so here's what I would recommend. So this letter has been developed essentially as a motion. I have it in a Word document right now, and for the express purpose that if there was some sort of edits that the board or the council wanted to make, that they could do so now. I think if you're looking at the substance of the recommendations, I think that those are the kinds of things that if the council wants to take an action on it prior to the planning commission hearing, which is next week, this would be the time to do that if there's interest in moving that forward. If it's editorial changes, to the language that aren't substantive to the recommendations that are being put forward, I don't think that there's a problem doing that, and we can obviously send out a version of it so that people can noodle on it. But yeah, I would say that if there's interest in moving forward a recommendation on ZMod kind of writ large, that it would need to be today in advance of the planning commission.
Great. I've got some questions and comments, but I don't want to go ahead on. I didn't know if Mohammed or anyone else had any other thoughts on that matter before I go back to the letter.
Again, as for me personally, I haven't read the letter yet, and I haven't. Again, I really believe that perhaps everything might be good on it, but I just wish that I can, look at it, even though I'm not on that subcommittee itself. But since it has been forwarded to all of us, I think I think it might be a good idea to sit down and see what is on it before we put it out. Of course, if the subcommittee wants to do something else, I think they can do it as well. But as for the recommendation that we have to maybe like say yes or no right now for it just to move forward, I think again, I don't think I might have a problem on that specific.
So I want to clarify, we can either vote to propose this letter to the board with its general structure. We can have edits that are minimal. If you want to add a completely different thing, that would not be germane to the motion and to the letter. So it would be minimal edits, just so you know. So if you want to review, you're more than happy to review and send me your thoughts. We're like, oh, this wording's weird. This needs to be tweaked a little bit. But if you're just like, why aren't we talking about festivals, which I will explain in a little bit, I think that's a major thing. That's not in our letter. And that would be substantive, and we could not make that change.
But you could certainly, write your own letter.
Absolutely.
If you felt that strongly or something.
Yes,
so.
and we didn't cover festivals because there wasn't much opposition. There doesn't seem to be a lot of hoopla around it. So we didn't think to waste our power. I didn't think of wasting our power as a council to be like, oh yeah, by the way, we support this check, right? We focused more on the contentious points of this. So Sarah, before you put your edits, would you mind me just going over the entire body of the letter, and then we can go back with edits and comments? Just to give an overview.
Mine's focused on the home-based businesses section, so I didn't know if you wanted me to just jump in and do that now while we're on it, or
sure.
Whichever you prefer.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So you can probably tell from the conversation we had earlier, I completely agree with the recommended maximum of 4 and 8. What I propose is adding in 2 points in addition to kind of beef up this section more. If everyone, is in agreement, or I don't know if it's just the people on the subcommittee that are in agreement. I am on the subcommittee, so I agree. But one would be mentioning, the whole COVID situation. I think that's important. Everyone's working from home, working remote, post-COVID. People are struggling with income. A lot of people have lost jobs. Last week alone, it was 900,000 people. So, I would suggest that. Secondly, when in the question I had about whether accessory living units can also have a home-based business, it was mentioned that yes, they can, but those total numbers have to be for both the main home and the accessory living unit, which I don't know about you all, but that's not anything I would have ever thought of. And I'm, obviously the supervisors are, a lot more advanced and familiar with this, but I just think it might be worth pointing that out because, if it is a smaller number than 4 and 8, that is a real challenge and a real burden, especially since in, most cases, I would assume assuming the 55 plus and disabled thing is gotten rid of, there's a chance that the people in the 2 units won't even know each other. And so to suddenly have to be so reliant on somebody else for your own business and your own income, I think is pretty challenging. So those are my two recommendations if other people are supportive as well.
So I'm going to treat this letter as a motion. So we have an amendment to the motion to add these 2 sections. Sarah, if you're able to write preferred language, I think that would be lovely, and we can put this in here. I don't think we have the time to write down exact language and craft it. I'm looking that we only have 35 minutes to finish this letter and do elections. But there's a motion on the floor to add these 2 friendly amendments to the home-based businesses, to add COVID and number of customers associated with affordable living units, and working with the principal unit. Is there a second to adopt these amendments?
There is a second.
There is a second. Thank you. Discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor in adopting these friendly amendments? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I believe I need to abstain since I recused. Yep, so abstain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Wonderful. So yeah, Sarah, if you have preferred language, that would be lovely. If you want to take lead on that, and we can put that in there. Once again, we've approved the substantive change. That means the detailed change will come in our final letter before it's released to the board. So.
And Sarah, just wanted to make sure that I've turned on the track changes. Hopefully you can see that to try to capture the notes and kind of the substance of each of those. So just wanted to confirm that this is kind of in the right direction so everyone has an understanding.
Yep, thank you.
All right. So Graham, can we scroll down to other items of support? So other items of support, oh, sorry, I was in the wrong place. Obviously, I wouldn't say obviously, but I believe that is the will of the council to support green initiatives and expand solar panel access and access to electronic vehicle charging stations. So that is noted in other items of support, and also supporting our stacked townhouse dwellings and being modern with the different type of development coming and different needs and wants of living arrangements for future and current generations. The use of historic buildings. Coming from Richmond, that's something I absolutely craved when I moved up here, is knowing that that building has been there from 1800. It has been 200 different businesses in its histories, but it has always been part of the community and always active. And I personally think young people enjoy that connection with history in their community and having a strong presence instead of these like new modern strip malls. So I did want to note that, though I don't think there's much pushback on that. And then also supporting food trucks and recognizing the power that they bring to communities, building communities once again, and supporting small businesses. And then supporting the indoor commercial and outdoor commercial recreation uses. Once again, not a major pushback, but just noting that as it is a value of young adults, ensuring that we can live, work, and play in the same area. And then finally, a request for study, as I noted before, the ALU's standard that you must have a single detached home and 2 acres of land is not connected with the realities of the housing market today, the housing wants and needs of tomorrow and future development and current development. So we are asking for them to do an analysis of that to make sure that we are expanding the ALU access to those in townhomes and other dwelling units to increase affordable living options and equitable options for all. And then also in that second to last paragraph, a lot of the pushback that we're hearing from folks is like, well, I don't want that in my community, and I don't want to live next door to someone who's selling whatever. Most of these folks live in a condo association or housing association, and they live by a set of bylaws or covenants. So those are the ruling documents of theirs. And I know my condo association doesn't allow home-based businesses and doesn't allow for accessory dwelling units. And that's just how it is. Your covenants and your HOA bylaws override county law in these instances. So a lot of the folks who are concerned about having them in their neighborhoods are usually protected through their bylaws and covenants against these things anyway. But they're using their advocacy and voice to silence those in different communities and silence voices like ours. So I put that as a note, as a hopeful point that the board will use in supporting these needed changes. And with that, that's the letter. So are there any other comments, concerns, edits?
So I have one question. In relation to the landlord that would be leasing this property, they have to adhere to the county's fair housing and discrimination language, correct?
That is my understanding, that and the Tenant Landlord Act in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Casey, do you have better insight on that?
Yes, any fair housing laws would continue to apply.
Then I would like to add a suggestion. I see that, you know, with these accessory dwelling units, they might compete with affordable housing. As of right now, there are specific types of affordable housing that undocumented immigrants and immigrants with specific visas cannot apply for to begin with. So with the introduction of these accessory living units, I think that it would be good for the board to consider immigration status as a protected status under the county's fair housing and tenant landlord protections. And that's just a suggestion to the board. I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are on that, but I foresee that this could be, you know, an incredible, I guess, an incredible alternative to affordable housing, especially when one is excluded from that affordable housing in the first place.
So Diego, are you asking that we put in our justification that allowing for accessory living units will increase affordable housing options to those who have varying immigration status who might be denied in other traditional forms of affordable housing?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I think that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to add language that notes one's immigration, that allowing for affordable living units increase the option for affordable housing options for our immigrant community and those with different citizenship statuses. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. All right, it passes. Diego, would you want to write the language on that?
Of course.
Okay, great. Just send it over to me and we can add it and we will send that, have that language in the final document.
Okay.
Awesome.
One
That's great.
question.
I appreciate that.
One question on the last part. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just jumping in. Casey, can you provide a little bit more context on what the historical building aspect is, and in particular, what kind of regulation or rules are there to make sure that we, protect the history and the, the architecture and the integrity of the building as a historic building?
Sure. So in the county currently, unless a building is within a historic overlay district, so that's an overlay that's been approved by the board, there aren't a lot of protections for the structures themselves. So the county inventory of historic sites is more honorific than provides any sort of protection against demolishing or, just taking down the building. So this alternative use of historic buildings is intended to incentivize people not to tear down the building, but to give a new life to the structure. Oftentimes they're in residential areas, so they're limited on what they can do. There's not a lot of commercial options when you're in a residential area, even with special exception approval. So this would allow a special exception to include appropriate uses. It would still go through to the public hearing process, so it's not like any use under the sun that may not be appropriate in a residential area could go in. But let's say like a property on a 10-acre property wants to be used as a catering business. That's actually a request that we got, and we didn't have an avenue for them. This would be a good option for them to pursue. We have included standards that would make them go, if there's any exterior modifications to the structure, they would not be able to do them if it would result in the removal of the building from the historic inventory. So you can't, by modifying it, you can't then remove it from historic inventory. There also is a requirement for the exterior modifications, I believe, that the Architectural Review Board, which is another back the AAC, be involved and to approve that or at least weigh in on the approval. So we do have some standards to make sure that the integrity of the structure isn't compromised. But again, just a way that we say, don't tear it down and build a McMansion. Maybe think of a cute bakery or something.
So to confirm, if I own a historical building and I want to tear it down, I don't have to go through any boards or anything. But if I want to repurpose my historical home as per, this, I would have to go through some different boards and checks to get that approved. Is that correct?
In order to get a use that isn't already permitted. So yes, you could still tear down the home, but you would just be building another home or whatever's permitted in that district. So this special exception is an entitlement process, but it gives you more permissions than you would be allowed by right.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
I did want to note that another thing that I did not mention, but is a significant part of this recommendation, I'm sorry for letting that out originally, is we are requesting the use of administrative permits versus public hearing process, and recognizing that the public hearing process is burdensome, can extend the process of someone converting their homes or putting an accessory unit in their homes, can extend that weeks, if not months. And then also there is a level of conscious and unconscious bias that comes forth when you have people making those decisions of where these units go and where they do not. And having it be a public hearing process, there also might be an issue with bias and unbiased conscious approaches from the community in which the homeowner wants to build. Which I hope you guys are able to read through those lines. But having an admin process will take that political entity and political nature of some of these changes out of the equation. All right, any further modifications? Hearing none, I would move that we adopt this letter as a resolution with the proposed amendments given by Sarah and Diego. Is there a second?
Can I second it? I don't know if I can.
Yeah, you can second it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I second it.
All right. All right. Is there any discussion before we do this? No? All right. So, Graham, do we have to do a individual voice vote, or can we just do collaborative? Okay, perfect. All right. So all those in favor.
Start by acclamation, and then if need be, you can do a roll call.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor of adopting this letter / resolution that will be sent to the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commissions stating the YAAC's positions on ZMOD. All those in favor say yay.
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 All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
All righty. All right. So the motion passes. Thank you so much. We did our first thing as a council. So this is it. We started 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I'm very excited. So our next motion or discussion is, do we want the chair, whether that be myself or someone else after the election tonight, to testify before the board in virtual person on these matters? Is there any discussion?
I think that would be great. I mean, the whole point of the yak, right, is to get our voice out there. And if we're not in the room where it's happening, then I mean, I'm this letter's great, and we're making our mark with it. But I think if nobody's there to give voice to it, then it doesn't it doesn't really pack as much of a punch.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any opposition?
No, I think yeah, I think it would be great if Sarah can be there and like you said, to lend a voice to the text. So that I think that would be good.
Yep. So the person giving the testimony would be the chair of the committee, whomever is elected today, and they would testify using the letter as a basis for their testimony. So I move that the chair, as of next week, testifies before the board on behalf of the yak. I hate that. Sorry, I just called it yak the one thing we didn't want to call it. Mohammed, you have a question?
Yeah, I was about to ask again. This letter and this situation is supposed to come out of two subcommittees, right?
So we asked two subcommittees to meet. A date was chosen. We met and did not have quorum, so the meeting had to be closed and canceled because not enough people were there. That's per, Robert's rules and the guidelines in which we have to follow. So I worked with Casey and Graham to write the letter.
No. The reason why I want to ask, because I'm just concerned if those members, of course, it's just mostly very few of us that are actually making comments and stuff. I want to see if you can, maybe reach out to those members again and have some kind of discussion with them before you move forward, if that's possible. If it's not possible, that's fine. You can move forward.
So Mohammed, we just passed the letter. So the only comments or modifications that could come out of those subcommittees would once again be editorial and minimal. So we cannot change the letter unless we want to have a substantive motion to override the previous motion where we approve the letter. So we will share the final letter with everyone, and everyone has the draft letter and can submit any editorial or minimal changes.
And I would also encourage anybody who has any additional thoughts, or even if you want to echo thoughts, feel free to write as either a citizen or as a member of this group as well.
Absolutely.
And I was going to mention that as well, that it doesn't have to be the yay chair. Anybody can testify at the planning commission or the board hearing. It's open to the public, and anyone can and should if they're interested.
So there isn't any vote. I'm just going to ask, is there any opposition for the chair to testify? If there is opposition, voice your concern now or say nay. Hearing none, the chair will be expected to testify at the public hearing on the 28th, a week from today. All right, so that's all for that. And I think I have to take a seat back and give it over to you, Graham, to handle the elections.
That's right. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. So as you probably remember, at our first meeting, we needed to elect kind of interim chairs and vice chairs. Per the bylaws for the Yay Council, the election of chair, vice chair, and secretary takes place at the first meeting of each year. So it's an annual election. So we had kind of an interim election for the first 2 months, first 2 meetings, but here we are. We need to do it again. So I had put out a request for everybody. Oh, and Sarah. Okay, Sarah is indicating that she's not going to be able to stay past the original 8:30 time. So thank you for telling us, Sarah. That being said, if we need, if anybody else knows that they need to leave at 8:30, please tell us now, because if one additional person leaves, we won't have quorum any longer, so we'll need to end the meeting. So just let us know before we get too far down the line. So in any case, we did receive 2 nominations for the chair. We've not received any nominations for the vice chair and the secretary roles. So I think we'll handle that. We'll handle that separately. But I think that the thing that we'll want to focus on for tonight is the chair. And then what I would recommend, since we didn't receive nominations for the vice chair and the secretary, is to not do an election for those officer positions at this time. I would wait and see if others can express interest in those, and then we would take up those elections at a subsequent meeting. That's my recommendation. You don't have to follow it, but that's what I would propose to do. So there are 2 nominees for the chair position. And so those are Denver Suppinger and Mohammed Rahman. I had indicated in my email that they've provided bios of themselves that speak to their experience and their interest in the council. And then also that there's going to be time at this point for 5-minute maximum stump speeches that allow them to speak to their nomination. So with that, I'm going to flip a coin very quickly to see who goes first. And then with that, the first can go, and then it's not intended as a debate. It's bios and experience. So hold on 1 second. I'm going to flip something. So I have a piece of paper here, and I'll just do it this way. So on this side of the piece of paper is Denver, and this side of the paper is Mohammed. And so I'm just going to throw it up in the air, and whoever comes up heads will go first. Yeah. Right. And so Mohammed has won the coin toss. Mohammed, you're feel free to use 5 minutes.
Okay, guys. Can you guys hear me? Can everyone hear me? Okay. And also, again, just to touch base a little bit, because we were asked to send the short bio, personal statement. I want to make sure. I mean, so at least I don't go back to talking about those things that are already written. Do you guys have a chance to look at those before the meeting, or? Okay, cool. Okay, guys. So basically today I'm just going to start with, because again I did talk about a lot of community works. I just want to start with some personal statements, some stuff that are not on the meeting on the bios, and maybe I can add a few more. But yes, I did attend Whitmer Middle School here in Alexandria, Virginia. And afterwards, I attended the West Potomac High School, also here in Alexandria, Virginia. And then, of course, afterwards, I went to Pennsylvania and undergrad, and then finished with a mechanical engineering degree. And then after that, started my company, which is right now we're trying to develop a better electric cars and also sustainable homes. But how I actually get into community work and doing the things that I do right now for the county and the state, I was offered this job to be the director of a nonprofit organization in Alexandria, Virginia. So that's where it started. And when I got that job, my first project was to develop a women's shelter, a shelter that would actually protect battered women and also individuals facing domestic violence in the county. And because of that project, that's how I started to get recognized in the county and doing that project. And of course, right after we finished that project, I was also able to develop free health clinics, and also, of course, after that, we were also able to develop many food pantries in the county. So it is from those projects that I started meeting with people in the county and started working with other community leaders who are also interested in making our county a better place. of course, when we were doing those projects, when we were implementing this project, when I was leading all those projects, we made it a policy, our policy, that whoever, comes to us for service, we will make sure we never ask for, for income status, and also for legal status, because again, we want to make sure that, I believe, this first domestic violence protected area in the county, and this first, women's shelter in the county is a place where, where anyone can come that face this kind of difficulties, this kind of challenge. So we want to make sure it is a place that is welcoming. And of course, the location where we started, as I mentioned, is Alexandria, Virginia. And as you guys might know, South County is where we have a lot of the difficulties in the county. And where I grew up, where I live, where I grew up, that's where we have a lot of the, the poor and the individual facing with much difficult challenges in the county. And of course, this is where a lot of those works are concentrated in Fairfax County. So yes, I was able to accomplish those tasks. And that's when, again, like I said, I started working with more individuals now who are, community leaders, and started doing other stuff. And finishing those projects, I started also working with, other advocates in our county on affordable housing. And again, on the bios that I sent you guys, I mentioned some of my works in affordable housing in the county, and also some of the progress, that our advocacy has brought in the county on affordable housing. And also around 2015, 2016, as you guys are aware, that in Virginia, and I believe also most of the country, when people have a criminal record, they are not able to, they lose their rights. They lose their citizens' rights, they lose their human rights. They're not able to vote or hold office, or even the reason why I even get involved in that project, because they're not able to hold a respectable job. And as you guys know, also, as we claim that Black Lives Matters, these laws, I call them Jim Crow laws as they are, affected mostly, young adults, but young Black men, young Black male. So noticing those things and having some friends who actually trying, they get into trouble with the law, mostly drugs. And then after they finish repaying the community for what they've done, but they are still held back. So seeing those things.
Mohammed, I don't mean to interrupt. You've got about 30 seconds left to wrap up. Okay.
So again, seeing those situations, I was able to work with the governor of Virginia to change those laws. And again, from my work, we were able to sign executive order to restore all Virginian rights. And the last thing I want to mention, as you guys know, in our county, we are not represented. I mean, the young adults are not represented. And again, seeing this situation, knowing that the politics in the county is mostly handled with retirees and older adults, that's why I had this vision that the young adults should be able to be represented. And of course, I've worked with the chair, the Chairman McKay, and other boards of supervisors to bring these ideas in reality. And again, as you guys know, it is from my work that now we have the Fairfax County Young Adult Council. But again, the thing though, over these years, I've developed all this working relationship with this individual and also with other county leaders to bring about this council. And I have now this relationship to make sure we are able to accomplish something meaningful. Because I want you guys to know, my goal is not to just have a council that's just going to give up, white papers and a resolution. I want us to make sure we're able to accomplish something. And that I can do. Because again, at the end of the day, we need someone who have the commitment to lead this council, to take this voice, to do something meaningful and something actually physical change in a county, that young adults will see that, okay, now, our county is more suitable for us. Our county, the county is more compatible for young adults. And this is going to take a lot of commitment and a lot of work. And again, just being able to bring about this committee itself, to bring about this council itself, it should show you guys that I can actually make it happen. You know, and again, I was a little bit concerned about any. Again, guys, as I was saying, just being able to bring about this vision into reality should show you guys that yes, I can make it happen. And again, like I said, I just want you guys to know that we need that voice that's gonna make this county suitable for young adults. And I already have those relationships now with the county, with the board of supervisors, and also with the chair. And I want to make sure that we are able to use this voice to make something happen for us, for young adults, to make something, to make the county more comfortable and more compatible with young people. And with that,
we should probably leave it there. We're pretty well over the 5 minutes. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and I will try to make up for that time. I recognize that it is late. I don't want to bend y'all's ear in this, but I can set my timer so I am on time. So I want to first thank you so much for your oath of confidence 2 months ago and electing me your chair. We as a committee and I as your chair were given a daunting task of figuring out how we're going to structure ourselves, what our intent was, what our vision was, and how to get that up and running. And it's been a great delight to talk to you all, hear about your passions, your individual interest, and how we can use your expertise and your hard work, the thing that pays your soul, to change this committee and make recommendations to our Board of Supervisors to better Fairfax County and make it a place in which young adults can excel and can live and can grow. I am here as someone who wants to make this space a democratic space. At the end of the day, I mean nothing, right? I might be leading this committee currently, and if re-elected, leading the committee as well, but I'm here to serve as a, like an executive director. What does executive director do? Then oversee the great work that you all doing. I look forward to serving in a subcommittee with Casey and Sarah and working in that capacity. But as I go forward as your chair, I want to keep that notion that what I do and the work that I do is for you all and for our community at large, and not for my personal progression or uplifting, right? This is a democratic system, and I tried to instill that value in the last 2 months, that if you aren't happy, if you have a concern, you want to see a change, this is your committee and we can do it. Granted, there's been some bureaucracy and legal barriers, right? With the 5-minute long script we have to do in the morning or in the beginning of our meetings, with not meeting with more than one other folk in our committee, or our council rather. Outside of that, those are things unfortunately I can't change, but the things I've had control over, I'd love to give that power over to you all and let you take charge. We are at the beginning of a really great space in Fairfax County where we will make change, right? To expect a committee to start in week 1, can create a program is not realistic and does not realize the power of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, the funding that's needed, and the structures at the. We do have to operate within the county government structure, and luckily we have great experts who currently work for the county, and I worked previously understanding how that process does work, knowing personally the Board of Supervisors through lobbying and working with them at the state level and the local level. And I want to use this expertise and the true understanding of how bureaucracy and programs get funded and developed to develop you all. My heart work, as you all said, as you all saw in my statement, is community building and uplifting others. And I think that's the power of what we have in the Young Adults Advisory Council, is to further young people, to create a sense of community. Young people are here for community. We move to areas because we feel like we belong. And unfortunately, a lot of suburban areas have been missing that component for decades, and we are bringing that back. And whether that community aspect is on the service end with shelters and pantries and volunteerism, that community aspect is on the food truck end, the community aspect spectrum is, include mixed use development and recreation, right? We need to create a community in Fairfax County that's been lagging. We need to create a community that's sustainable. And I know you all have the skills and the insights to do it. And I look forward to working with you all, whether in a chair capacity or a member capacity, to doing this with you, right? To making the county that we need and we want to see as a board of talented, memorable, wonderful young adults. And I thank you so much for your service to your county. And I thank you once again for electing me as your interim chair. And I hope to win your vote for re-election. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Denver, for those speeches. So I think what we had done previously with the voting structure for the interim chair was a little bit unusual, and it was because I believe that we had 3 nominees at the time. So I think since we only have 2, we can do just a simple voice vote. So we will just go down the roll, and people will state their vote. So we could do it that way. If there's any objections, I would just raise them now before we get underway. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go down in alphabetical order by first name because that's what I'm seeing in my participants panel. And then Najma, you'll be last because you're listed as an attendee. So we'll go Casey, Denver, Diego, Jessica, Lee, Mohammed, Sujit, and then Najma. So when you're ready to vote, just unmute yourself and indicate your vote. So Casey.
I need some people with A's or B's. I'm always first, but my vote is for Denver. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Casey, and my vote would be for myself.
Diego?
My vote will also be for Denver.
Jessica?
My vote is for Denver as well.
Lee?
I vote for Denver.
Mohammed?
Vote for myself.
Sujit?
I'm sorry. I'd vote for Denver, please.
And Najma. And I'm going to try to unmute you because we've been having some difficulties. But Najma, can you hear us?
Mohammed.
Okay. So I have 6 votes for Denver, 2 votes for Mohammed. So Denver has been elected to the chair. As I mentioned, we currently have the interim roles of vice chair and secretary being filled right now by Lee and by Diego, respectively. I didn't receive any nominations to fill those roles. So what I would ask is for the next meeting, if you are, whether you're Lee and Diego or someone else that would like to serve in those roles, please just nominate yourself between now and the next meeting, which we should set, by the way, as probably the last order of business for the evening, a recurring time for the council to meet. But we would encourage anybody who's on the council to run for one of those officer positions. So thank you for that. So with that, Denver, do you have the unless there's anybody else have anything that they wanted to address as a part of the election? Okay, so it's for 1 year, for calendar year 2021, and we'll do it again in 1 year's time. The next thing, Denver, is the timing and the date for the recurring meeting. So do you have results that you could share?
Can I first say thank you so much for everyone for your vote of confidence. I look forward to leading with you all and creating some really great initiatives and programs and white papers and recommendations and all the great things we will do. And thank you, Mohammed, for your advocacy. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I look forward to leaning on you and having your voice reverberate and change the face of the county. In regards to the full meetings, only 4 folks completed my survey, unfortunately, but it seems as if the 3rd Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock seems to be the prevailing date and time. So does anyone have any conflicts with the 3rd Thursday of each month at 7 p.m.? Hearing no conflicts or objections, I would kindly, do you have to move that our regular meeting time? No. Okay, now our regular meeting time will be the 3rd Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. So now your calendar can get set. I apologize for somewhat sporadic meetings up until this point, but I'm happy we were able to get a consensus. And then if you haven't already, please fill out the survey for the subcommittees, and I will be sending that out to an email to Graham to send you all out with your preferred subcommittee times. And then I will ask the chair of that subcommittee to take lead on getting those meetings set up. All right, is there any other business before the council this evening? Any new business that wasn't on the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
One thing that I just wanted to bring up, and this is this was a recommendation, but Rachel Flynn, who's the deputy county executive, is interested in presenting to the council at some point. She didn't. She asked if we could have some space on the agenda at a future meeting. Doesn't have to be the next one, but like to come and discuss an issue that's of real interest to her, which is the integration of land use planning and transportation, which I know that there's a lot of interest in that, and specifically how do we make better places in Fairfax where people will want to go to. So that's just something to keep in mind as a future topic, not necessarily for the next one, but for some point in the near future.
Absolutely. And maybe for the next one, we'll have to figure. I'll get with you, Graham, and figure out what's the best topic to cover. All right. So I will once again ask if there's a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, so we moved. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Casey, you don't have to abstain anymore. Wonderful. All right, at 8:52, sorry for the 7-minute lag over the calendar time. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for your time with us this evening, and I look forward to us to get it down to the nitty-gritty and doing some great work. So thanks, y'all.